You're watching
So I
94XO.
first want to start off talking about your move from the East Coast to the West Coast. How was that for you emotionally, and then just transitioning, your life, your career to another side of the world?
I'm starting to realize, I think, honestly, in this quarantine, that like I'm a little bit of a different breed. So certain things that are like emotionally registering to certain people, like, I don't know, to me, or not even emotionally registering, some things that can be a bigger deal, I think I make them so small in my brain that I'm just like, all right, I just got to do it. I just have to get it done. So I don't really think too much about like, oh shit, I'm leaving everything I know and I'm leaving all this stuff. I think also I had been coming to California so much that it was like, I don't know, it just felt natural. And, we were talking prior to recording just about moving up in the world and radio and the difficulties of that. And I think that came with it. Just, at that point, I'd reached my limited hot. I had done all the shows, night, afternoon, morning, worked with the biggest names in radio, in my opinion. Like I worked with my two, Funk Flex and Angie Martinez. Those are the two people I grew up listening to on the radio, and I worked for them. So, and I did a really good, it wasn't like I just was in the same room with them at some point. Like I really did work for those people. So like, at that point it was like, I don't know, it just felt natural. It felt like I wasn't leaving anything behind. It was like, it was supposed to be the next step. And like my family, we speak every day, but I don't see them every day. So that wasn't too difficult either. And then I moved with my best friend, like moving with Mike Zombie, who that's his plaque behind me. So I love to stunt in his in my Zoom calls and stuff. But moving with that built-in person, and it wasn't just like, because you have different best friends that like speak to different aspects of your life. You have like your friends that you love to go out with, you have your friends that you love to have deep talks with, all those things. And Mike is my music industry friend. He's my like guy friend that I can get all the advice from on my shit. Like he understands every world, and at the same time he comes from Jersey, so we both come from, I grew up fairly privileged. I'm not gonna say I came from bullshit, but we came from regular, degular, schmegular places with friends that don't have the same ambition. So to move across the country with somebody that does have that same ambition and is as excited as you to be hungry, and you have the same friends, the same circle, you want to help him, he wants to help you. It was like, I don't know. I say all that to say I did have a more better circumstance to move, but at the same time it was like I didn't come for a job. I still just made the decision to go, and
Yeah.
I think it's worth it for anyone to try some crazy shit like that.
I say that's one thing like I've always been scared of, like, being here in St. Louis, like we don't have the same opportunities, or it's a little bit harder to get those opportunities because the market is so small. So, taking that leap of faith has always been scary to me. So like, following up with your story and seeing like how you did it, I was like, man, like I wish I had the balls to do that.
What I like to think about with things like that is like, once you do it, like once you stop thinking about it and do it, you have absolutely no choice but to like keep going. Like if you throw yourself in the fire, you have to get out of the fire. You literally are not going to just stand in the fire and be like, fuck it, I'm here. Like that's not how it works. So when you pull the trigger and just move, like just, I don't know, like that's how I get rid of the fear of anything. It's like, yo, once you're in it, you just have to figure it out. And that's when your natural instincts kick in, the survival mode, all this shit. And like, you see your own best work when you put yourself in those positions. It's getting rid of the fear to put yourself in that position, because who wants to be uncomfortable at any point in your life? That just sucks. But like just thinking about like even the bigger picture thing is tough to think about sometimes in the moment. But so forget the bigger picture, but think of even in the moment, think of how much you're going to learn about yourself and your limits and your boundaries and what you can do and can't do and what you like and don't like when you're forced to figure it out. When you're comfortable, you're never going to figure that stuff out. So that's the other thing with the risk taking. Like it's important. Like you're going to learn more about yourself whether you realize it or not, and that's probably the biggest gift. And again, even they all say, well, if you fail, and like no one wants to hear that. Like, well, I don't want that to be an option, but it can be, and it's still really fucking beneficial. Like this quarantine really, I think, taught me that. Not that I took any risk during quarantine, shit, just realizing like once you put yourself in that, like you have to, like you have no choice but to learn. And I think that's exciting as fuck. Like you need to learn about yourself because we don't realize how much we don't know.
Exactly. Now that kind of ties into what I wanted to ask you about, like what keeps you going, what gives you that drive to keep, after doing, your podcast and doing radio and stuff, like why do you continuously keep pushing to do more?
I'm a fan. At the end of the day, I'm a fan of music. I'm a fan of my peers that I've, become friends with. And it's like, since I was a kid, I've been infatuated with music. And I don't want to say celebrity in the sense of, oh my God, you're famous, I want to be next to you. But I've been infatuated with people that have been able to take their passion and make a living out of it and become really successful off of it. And even I was even confused for a long time when I was like younger and I just wanted to be in the same room as these musicians. And I would be like, yo, am I a fucking like groupie? Even it'd be girls and everything. I'm like, I must be a groupie because why do I want to be around these people so bad? But it took like, I really just want, I love to learn from these people. These are people that have something to share with the world because they unlocked a key to get to that level that a lot of people are looking to get to. With their personal lives, a disaster sometimes, but that level of commitment is something that I'm always intrigued about learning about. So as far as being a journalist and getting to tell those stories, it's an honor. Like every day, like I've been doing this for 10 plus years. It's still an honor to, I'm on emails this morning with one of my favorite rappers of all time, setting up an interview for next week. Like, and I've met him a billion trillion times, but like to me, this is like the coolest thing ever. I don't think it's ever going to be not cool. And the second that it isn't anymore, I think that's when you realize maybe it's time to switch gears. But understanding, and I think, being on a podcast, multiple podcasts and doing all that stuff and understanding the power of your word and the influence of the fact that like people look to your opinion because they know it's an educated one. It makes me just want to keep going more and more and keep telling these people stories. And, I meet my rapper friends I meet rappers that they're so good with wordplay, but sometimes they're not as good at doing an interview or talking. So it's like, I also enjoy that challenge of pulling it out of them to then write it all, regurgitate it back and just make it sound so much better and cohesive and get their point across, even if they couldn't get it across properly. Like, I don't know. That's always for me going to be something exciting. And then aside from writing, even just creating in general, like I'm in the process of redesigning my house, just making like, for me and Mike's house, just making it fully like a creative studio. Like we're putting up green screens and painting Super Mario Brothers walls and just doing all types of stuff just to be inspired to create all the time. Like, I don't know, creating and contributing to the world in a positive way and bringing joy to people is like all I ever want to do.
I say I can agree to that. Like that's why I love doing it. Making people happy and seeing their after the finished product. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
What are some things though that you've learned so far? I guess just in the industry, or even just your time, out in California that has made you better as a personality.
I think understanding. I mean, again, with the whole everybody always says, but everyone always says like, oh, don't listen to the negative feedback and haters have no life. That's why they write comments on the internet and stuff. And all of that is true. And you can hear that 1,000 times a day, but it's still hard to absorb that when you're getting like negative commentary and stuff. But I think just kind of like separating and learning that people just project their insecurities onto you and really having to learn how to, oh shit, this chair is very broken. Learning how to not take that in. I think like not absorb that as truth. I think for a long time I did. So like, this is kind of not what you asked, but a little bit, because it's more about just a learning lesson of like my time in the industry. But like, even just recently, I kind of learned like, I mean, I've been taking a break from my podcast, and obviously I haven't done Joe's podcast in 4 years now. But just kind of realizing like, even though the stories I would tell and like, my sexuality stuff and all the crazy things that my dating life rather, that I'd get into, that's a part of me and it's always going to be a part of me. But and I'm always going to tell stories about it to my friends. And I'm going to encourage women to do what they want, how they want it, on their own terms, fuck the rules, the system, all the things. But I started not understanding, like, why when I share this, am I getting like the feedback back? Like, I'm getting painted as somebody that I'm not. And just learning kind of like that aspect of storytelling is maybe not for me, like being on a platform like that, podcasts and stuff like that. I think journalism and interviews are kind of more my thing, but necessarily sharing every aspect of my life is like, it's not going to be received in the way that I was trying to put it out in the world. And the way it came back to me made me internalize that, like, oh, I must have daddy issues then, or I must, whatever they're saying to me, it must be fact, because they're, you know what I'm saying? Even though I felt secure in that. So kind of just rambled a little bit, but to bring it all back in is kind of just like learning my limits and my boundaries. And I think everybody kind of needs to do that when they get in this music industry or in any industry in general, and testing things out and seeing what works for them, and not being afraid to switch gears a little bit. Like, I came in as a journalist. I will always be a journalist first at the end of the day. But I think even recently, like, I kind of got caught up in that whole, like, once you get a platform, that's all that matters and you need to stick to that. But to summarize all of this, I learned switch gears at any point that you want to, one, and two, don't internalize what other people are saying back to you. Develop a very strong coat of, knowing yourself, and none of that shit's going to affect you. But
with that, because like nowadays, being all over the internet, people they say whatever, and you trying to be yourself, like you said, people won't like you, like no matter what you do or what you say, like they'll have a reason to, like, I don't like her, like she's this, she's that. But that's like one thing I've personally always loved about you. You were always transparent, and you were always, yourself. And it was one of those things, like, I know there's a bunch of people that were listening or like that, like, I don't know how to be like that. Like, I'm not secure enough.
And that was what I was trying to put out in the world. I wanted to inspire women to know that you can work in this, specifically in my goal was, you can work in this crazy industry and you're going to be around rappers. And listen, if you were a nerd like me when you were younger, but now you're a bad bitch and you're also talented, fuck them, fuck the rappers if you want, fuck whoever you want, fuck the man who you had on your wall since a motherfucking kid, fuck him good and go about your business. It's not about, you know what I mean? And that message rings true to this day. Whoever you're around, if you're attracted to them, do what you want. If you're single, they're single, whatever. But it started becoming painted as that was all I do. Like, you know what I mean? And that was like, and again, like, it's not like, oh my God, this fucking chair. I put chairs together.
The people saying those things, they didn't listen to every episode. They didn't hear you out. They didn't see your background and stuff. So
exactly. And it really got to me after a while. And Joe Budden fans are just not the nicest people. So, but again, and I'm not saying I don't want to do that forever, but it definitely taught me just, there's so many aspects to this world of being a personality and doing all that. And there's limits and there's things that you should do and shouldn't do. And that was probably just for now, just not it. The world wasn't ready to receive that in that moment. And I think there will be. I think there will be a better time where I can talk more. I'm not that and that was the other thing. I don't want to come out and be like, hey, I fucked so-and-so. Like, that's never, I've never said any of that. I've never said I fucked anybody, but that was coming to me too. And
yeah. I'm sorry, I'm spinning around a little bit. So radio and podcasting, like what I guess is the pros and cons, in your opinion, of the two? Like, they're similar, but they're very different.
Like versus, like radio versus podcasting?
Yeah.
I've reversed my thought process, but for years, like since 2015, 16, 17, 18, I was always thinking I love podcasts more, because in a podcast, and I guess I do, you are free to talk whatever you want and really show your personality. In radio, you have bite-sized clips at 30 seconds or whatever, and it seems like it gets shorter every year, what like how long your talk breaks can be and stuff. And it's really hard to infuse, throw into a commercial on also, teasing whatever the fuck Drake did coming up next and doing all that stuff at one time, but then also making a joke so people could see how funny you are. Unless you get like a morning show where you really have co-hosts that you can bounce off of and do that stuff, it gets tough, And especially in radio, when it is the same program songs over and over, and you run out of creative things to say about said program songs over and over. So it is difficult, but there is also some beautiful, beautiful aspects of it. Like, I just reread Angie Martinez's book a few weeks ago just for some more inspiration throughout this quarantine, because it's tough staying inspired during this time.
Right.
And just realizing the importance of like, she broke the news of 9/11 to the city of New York when that happened. You know what I'm saying? She spoke to Hove, and it doesn't work like this anymore, unfortunately, with interviews, but he came right off stage from the whole situation beefing with R. Kelly back in the day and the macing him and all that, and came straight to Hot 97 to sit in that chair and talk to Angie and make a difference. She fucking interviewed Pac at the height of the beef with Biggie, and that could have been a whole different disaster if she would have released the interview, but she didn't, because she had, you know what I'm saying? Like, she was smart enough not to do that. But all that to say, radio holds some extremely important moments, and I think people shit on radio so much, and it's like they don't really, even though, like, yes, there's so many other faster ways and things like that now, yes, because we're in this we need instant gratification, but at the same time, like, people don't understand how many people are in their cars, in the office, just sitting listening to the radio. You are, every moment that you're speaking, broadcasting to so many people that are hearing you. You're getting them through their workday. You're getting them to their commute to work. You're getting them to get their coffee so they start their day. There's a lot of, like, not pressure, what's that word? Like, responsibility in that, but like a good one. You know what I mean? Like, radio is really, really important too. I think it's different. It's in different ways, but both are, like, I don't know, really cool ways to be able to, again, like we said, make people smile.
I say it's interesting on people's take with radio now, because like around me, like, people make fun of it. Like, we don't listen to the radio, we don't do this and this, but it's so many like artists I've interviewed and talked to, and they DM me, they're like, can you get my song on the radio? Can you do this and that? And I'm just like I've incorporated into my interviews, like, why is radio play important to you, but you don't know anything about radio. So like you said, like, radio is still important and will hopefully always be important, especially when it comes to those artists. Radio here in St. Louis, it's a little bit different when it comes to those things, because like, we can't do anything here anymore. So it's like the opportunity.
It's everywhere. It's tough.
It's hard. I'm sitting here like, so y'all gonna let me board up?
Right. I never got to board up. I never made it there.
I know how to board up, but they told me that I need to be trained professionally by somebody in the studio to grow, and they just, they never let me do it. So
there's always a reason why. Like, mine was because I worked in the morning, and the only time I'd be able to practice would be overnight, and you can't do both because you're going to be tired. The other excuse before that was it was legitimate, but for many years, until actually my last year at Hot 97, so 6 out of my 7 years, I was not a Hot 97 employee. I was a Funkmaster Flex employee. And so because of that, they couldn't have me in the building like during certain hours, because I was a liability.
I've been furloughed, and they took my work IDs.
Oh, that's the worst. I used to come up from my internship, bro. I used to flash that in the beginning when they brought me back for Flex. Yeah. I used to just be good, but then they got too high tech. You got a sign scan.
Now, in your recent podcast episode, even though you told me before, like, you're not using your Instagram account anymore, you have your co-host now doing all the work for you. So you were talking about it ties into like you having anxiety and stuff. That's actually good.
Go ahead.
I would say that's something like that I can relate to, like when it comes to my video content. Like, I get it. So what I want to ask you is, like, how do you find that balance to cope with anxiety, because you're busy all the time?
I'm still learning that balance, and I've only recently learned to draw the boundary at Instagram and understand that that was like heightening my anxiety, because it's like I really don't care. I don't like going out. I don't care what people do, but yet I'd be on Instagram and looking at everyone doing stuff and be like, fuck, I'm supposed to be there. I should be doing that. But like I don't really want to be there.
Yeah.
So it was causing this weird FOMO that makes no actual sense. And it was just in that moment and realizing just how much of my day I spend stressing about that or going on it and just looking at everybody's stuff. I'm like, it's not very productive and I'm not gaining anything from it. So at first I just got off the platform for a couple weeks to kind of just evaluate if I could do it, like what am I missing out on? And I didn't miss anything. And so, but then I do know, like, you know, in our careers, we are front facing people. We do need to be on social media and speak to people. It's just the nature of our job, as vapid as it sounds. I hate having to be like, oh, I have to be on social because it's, but it literally, that is real. And so just to keep a presence and maintain some sort of like, you know, because you want people to think of you if they need a writer or something, like they need to see your face and stuff. So I just have her running it, and it just feels, you know what it feels? It feels like the 90s again, like before I had to worry that when I like, you don't realize until you take it away how much you were caught up on like, oh shit, this may not look right in a picture, or this isn't going to be good for that, or like, oh wait, let me stop and take a picture. Like I don't take pictures. I don't take my phone out for nothing when I'm out now, because I don't have a story to put it on. Like I might take a picture or two and then save it all and send it to Joyce at the end of the day or something. But I don't have the time to be snapping a picture, texting Joyce like, yo, put this on my story right now and say da-da-da-da. It's beautiful. It just keeps me, again, I also, you know, I touched on this earlier. I have a tendency to overshare. And I personally just don't love everything I post on my story. Sometimes I'm like, you didn't need to, you didn't need to put
That's
that.
a good growth right there.
Like, you know, so I'm like, you know what, to filter that, let's just make sure. And then that way too, Joyce checks my messages. She'd be like, oh, this dude hit you 3 days ago, you still don't want to hit him? I'm like, nah, girl, we good. You know, it's great. It's wonderful. So, but like all that to say, the dealing with the anxiety thing, my personal lately solution has just been, don't put myself in any situations that give me anxiety. But I also am very lucky and blessed that I have that freedom to just choose not to be around people ever in my life. I mean, or like deal with Instagram. I can afford to pay somebody, you know what I mean? Like there's things that I can work around it. So I don't like giving advice to that, knowing I'm coming from a privileged place, because I don't know necessarily.
I can't wait till I can do that.
I don't know necessarily what I would say to that if I couldn't afford to pay someone else to do it, you know, because I kind of have to be on it at that point. But my girlfriend told me this like a month ago, and that's what inspired me. She was like, I'm at a point, pay someone to do the things that give you anxiety. It's that simple.
I remember when you tweeted that. I took that tweet and I put that on my Instagram story. Like, you know what? And I did that. I hired a videographer and everything. Cause
listen, that is so important. And it's, you know, what's better. Is that a phrase? Whatever. What's more fun about that as well is like, now you have someone to collaborate with and like bounce ideas off of, and they have to care and give you advice because they're getting paid in that moment. You know what I mean? Like, cause I've noticed too, like a lot of my homegirls are, you know, bless their hearts, but they don't have the same interests about certain things. And, you know, how do I curate this properly or whatever? I can't have certain conversations like that. Or especially at this point right now, we're all so busy on our other shit. It's like, everyone's brain is everywhere. It's hard to be a sounding board for anyone else. So I'm like, yo, let me pay someone that I can make them tell me answers and give me advice and come up with ideas for me. Because this is
so good. Exactly.
Exactly. Like, dog, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I want to do that. Oh, like, and I also, the same week that she told me that, I also started a meal prep service. It's expensive, but I'm like, that's another thing. Cooking healthy food, I can't do it. I'm a shitty cook. It's all bad. I throw it out every time I make it. Waste mad money on the shit that I bought at the store, and then I order bad and I eat worse. So got a meal delivery service now. I'm eating better. It's great. So I'm like, that's my motto now. Pay people to do the shit that mentality.
Like I said, I can't wait till I get to that point. I don't want to cook. I'm tired of leftovers.
I cannot. I'm skilled at so many things. Cooking is not even sort of one of them. Not even.
What has been your favorite accomplishment you've had so far in your career?
Hmm. I
You just
don't
have
know.
so many.
Yeah, it's crazy because I was in like I said, I'm redesigning my house, and so I was thinking about like a wall in my room that I kind of just want to put pictures of me in like all different moments in my life, like acting as a kid and my career highlights and stuff. So I was actually just sort of reflecting on this, but I didn't go deep enough to get an answer. Um, but I think wow, I don't know because there's so many layers to it. There's like personal levels of like, it meant so much to 14-year-old me or something, but there's a project I'm working on now that I cannot speak on, but teenage me, I think when this is completed, this will be probably the biggest accomplishment of my life for me personally. It's not, it's really dope. But one that I've done so far, I think, oh my God, interviewing Angie Martinez. Is that so small on a list of so many big things? But
That's huge for me over here.
like, she did the Joe Budden podcast to promote, I'll name this podcast later to promote her book a couple years ago. And, it's just, all of that Joe Budden stuff happened so fast for me that I kind of didn't even really get to reflect on it in the moment. Like, holy shit. Like I went from just the person, the fan behind the scenes to like, now I'm, doing all these interviews and stuff. So I didn't really get to really bask in that moment that like, wow, the tables flipped. Like I get to interview the interviewer now, like, and it's Angie and she knew me. It was so many aspects of it was so cool. It was beyond just interviewing her, but it was like, it was my show. Like that was a huge deal. And beyond that, it was like, we already have a rapport because I've already worked for you. Just that alone was so dope to me. Like, yo, here I am. I don't know. I must have been like 29, 28-year-old Marisa. Now I'm interviewing Angie Martinez on my platform because she's my peer and she knows me because we work together. Like that was, to this day, like, I don't know, man. I admire her so fucking much. Like that was really cool. And then I think also hosting Revolt's New Year's Eve, going into 2018. That was a huge, huge, huge deal for me.
I say seeing your growth like over the years, like it's dope. It's inspiring, for people like me just to see all the things you've done like at a young age. Like you saying we're 28, like I'm 26 right now, and so like you motivate me. You're one of the people that keep me going. So like I don't know if you sound like creepy or anything, but like keeping up with you.
Like, I love hearing that because it's like some days, like with the whole Instagram, like sometimes I just want to disappear from all like everything and just be this abstract artist that just creates from her castle in the sky and puts, a book out or whatever. And I'm like, no, I was put here to like do shit and show people shit and like talk to people and stuff. And anxiety, dude, that shit'll get in your head like nobody's business. So like it's tough, but I feel like, I don't know, that's a lot of people that create stuff, right? Like we're always in our heads and
all the time.
we've had a voice in our heads since we were kids, more so than probably a lot of our friends because we're talkers and that's what we do. But
I always say creatives, we talk with our hands all the time. Like
right.
all the time. Now, what advice would you give to people that are in like a position like myself, where we're starting up, trying to figure out like how to, get further into the game in the industry?
It's so hard because like my trick, like I used to always tell my homies in not that St. Louis is small, but in smaller markets, I guess, I would always just say like, yo, it's so easy, not easy, but there's always artists coming to town to do stuff. And there's a lot less personnel or people that are like, I'm rambling here. In New York, it would be really hard because you're in the land of 1,000 fellow celebrity journalists and celebrity radio personalities and celebrity media people that anytime an artist would come to town and you want to get an interview, you're 80th in line because there's all other people and whatever. In smaller markets, it does become easier to, you know, find out, you know, shoot an email to the venue like, hey, I'm with this radio station, can I interview at this day or whatever. I've learned, you know, it's worked a lot better for a lot of my friends. In COVID right now, it's not really, you know, it's not the easiest thing, and also it's beyond interviews and stuff. But I think now just the age of like the internet is such a tool, but also just, I don't know. I think it's a mentality thing is the biggest advice I can give. Like I can say, go do this, go do that. It worked for me. It worked for him. It worked for her. But like, that doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. What does work for everybody is keeping the motherfucking mentality that you need to keep going. And it's like understanding the game that there's going to be waves even in your own career. So you're going to be hot and getting the hottest interviews for a couple years or whatever, and then you're going to just hit a fucking quiet period sometimes, you know? And you have to understand that shit comes in ebbs and flows. And I think learning that and accepting that makes it a lot easier to go the distance instead of, oh, I'm fucked up now. I had my glory day already 5 years ago. I'm trash now, whatever. So I think really just playing the long game, and again, like I said earlier, remembering why we did this shit, remembering that we're fans of shit. What's been working for me is when I really get overwhelmed, I've been like building, like I said, my house and just things around me to bring me back to, for me, like my happiest place was like when I was a kid and, you know, like just being creative and stuff. So I'm bringing nostalgia around me that reminds me of that period so I can get back to the true essence of who I am, what I care about, and fuck all the other shit and just keep going and creating. And so that is my advice. Like build a space where in your home, in your private, like wherever the hell that you can truly just be inspired and remember who the fuck you are, because so much will get you away from that shit. And on the other side, the other piece of advice is remember it's a long game and shit is ebbs and flows. You're going to be hot. You're going to be cold. No one can be hot at all times. Like it's just not possible. It's not sustainable. And not saying you're going to be fucking ice cold, but again, just understanding that shit changes and it goes up and down. And as long as you have a solid understanding of that, I think you can like kind of just weather any storm as long as you want to be here, you know?
Well, thank you for talking to me. Like, I appreciate it. Like, this is exciting. Like, but
I'm
I
telling
like
you.
you said, like, all the things you said.
Good. I hope I didn't ramble too much. It's funny because like I know I rambled much about the whole like being pigeonholed sex thing, but I think it's just been on my brain so much. And this is like, you know, I'm tired, but yeah, like seriously, just keep grinding, dude.
It's your girl MonneXo, and you just finished a 94XO interview. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media platforms. Be easy.